Hey guys, welcome back! All fans of the series know that the first Castlevania games began as an homage to monster movies coming from Hollywood. So let's celebrate the 30 years of Akumajo Dracula, the very first title released in '86 for the Famicom Disk System. Let's take a look! Right after the European launch of the Nintendo Entertainment System back in September of 1986, Akumajo Dracula was released in Japan for the Famicom Disk System. The game would eventually cross the border over to the United States and Europe a lot later, by May of '87 and by December of '88 respectively, and in cartridge format. It tells the story of Simon Belmont on his quest to defeat Dracula that emerges every 100 years and must fight against many known movie monsters like Frankenstein, the Mummy, two of them, Igor, Medusa, the Phantom Bat, Grim Reaper, also known as Death, and obviously Dracula. I was 15 years old when I first played Castlevania and was over at a friend's house and on a Commodore 64. Needless to say that I wasn't impressed with the C64 version. Back then, by 1990, what really grabbed me on a video game was the music, and sadly, the music from this C64 port was really awful and the SID chip was capable of doing a lot more. Later that year I was able to get hold of the Amiga version of Castlevania and was again quite disappointed. Later that year, around Christmas time, a neighbor of mine that had a 386 PC showed me the DOS port of Castlevania and I was finally impressed by it, even being a 16-color graphics port with this choppy scrolling and animation and sounds and music coming from the PC speaker. But the best was yet to come, my experience with the NES original. What an overwhelming achievement! What an astonishing piece of programming goodness! I just couldn't stop thinking, I've been chasing ghosts! The best version of Castlevania is right here on an 8-bit console and on a system that I wrongfully labeled as a kid's toy. How I was wrong! This kid's toy has got the best vampire killer game ever made! Konami really created something special with this franchise, and this first title is, for me, the best video game ever made for the NES. It is extremely well designed, each level with its own characteristics, and with a superb 8-bit soundtrack that is among the best I've ever heard. And it simply goes everywhere I go. It's a difficult game, indeed, but it's so addictive that we'll quickly surpass that obstacle. And believe me, it's so damn gratifying to conquer one more stage or to simply slay a few more enemies. As said before, the conversions for home computers were really awful. It seems like Konami wasn't really interested in conquering the European market. The DOS and Commodore 64 ports were developed by an obscure division of Distinctive Software, back then known as Unlimited Software, and later acquired by Electronic Arts. As for the Amiga badly improved version, it was handed over to Novotrade that a few years later changed its name to Appaloosa Interactive, that also developed the Echo the Dolphin series and the two Contra games released for the PlayStation and Sega Saturn. Nonetheless, Konami's interest in home computing was centered around the MSX line of home computers. So for the MSX2, Konami released by Halloween of '86, a month after the original, a slightly different version of Akumajo Dracula that, besides the mirrored cover, offered a similar platform game with the same backgrounds and music, but with different areas and a non-linear Metroid-like style of gameplay that ended up influencing its sequel, Castlevania II Simon's Quest, focused a bit more in exploration, with RPG elements thrown in. This MSX2 version was the first Castlevania game available in Europe under the title Vampire Killer. A few years later, by 1993, the Japanese exclusive Sharp X68000 home computer received a remake of the original Akumajo Dracula that by 2001 was again remade for the PlayStation, entitled Castlevania Chronicles. This last version features an arrange mode that is simply an easier way for newer players to fully enjoy the original concept without ending up dead constantly. Taking full advantage of the 10 MHz 68000 processor of the Sharp X68000, the entire game was completely updated with a brand new engine. Stages were redesigned and also new stages were added. It is also known for being extremely difficult, so personally I prefer the more relaxed PlayStation version with its arrange mode that I've mentioned earlier. And the music is outstanding in both versions, with new arrangements of those familiar tunes from the original NES game and from the series altogether. Many other ports of the original game were made for portable systems, including mobile phones and even arcade coin-op games like Nintendo's Play Choice 10 and the Nintendo Versus system. Also in 2002, Konami released the Collector Series for Windows. Back in 2013, the Wii's Virtual Console allowed younger players to get to know the origins of the series, and also for fans of the franchise that simply forgot how it all started after Symphony of the Night was released in 1997. The name Castlevania for the American and European releases resulted from a misunderstood translation of the original title, Akumajo Dracula, that was wrongfully mistaken for Dracula's Satanic Castle. It would most likely sound controversial, so the official translation of Akumajo Dracula remained as Devil's Castle Dracula, since it was released outside Japan in May 1st of 1987. So guys, 30 years have passed since the release of the very first title of the Castlevania franchise, one of the greatest series of video games ever created. Feel free to point out down in the comments section your favorite titles from the whole franchise. Meanwhile, check my latest videos, the 2016 room tour of my man cave and my personal top 10 original Xbox games. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please like, share and subscribe to It's a Pixel Thing. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next week.